So, game over screens. We don't like to see them. When it seems like all is good, bam, we get filled with utter rage and the urge to cry. But have you ever taken the time to examine the game over screen? Well, no, they're just game over screens. But was the time you look at it for a nanosecond before immediately going back to the main menu in a fit of rage? So why don't we take a closer look at them, specifically the other ones. The game over screens that aren't just you died ha ha ha, the ones that go a bit further. Have you ever felt scared over a game over screen?
Are you fucking serious? Hell no!
Is what 99% of you gamers would say.
I'm not a—
But for the
fuck you!
1%, this video is for them. See, from the 1980s until the 2010s, game over screens weren't just text that said you died. They usually had either animation or somber music, so it left something in the gamer, maybe determination to continue, or maybe a bit unsettled. We're going to be looking at 3 categories of game over screens. Category A features the ones that aren't meant to be scary, but accidentally end up being so. B features ones that are intentionally scary. And C are some leftovers that I feel need to be shouted out. The miscellaneous ones. The ones that were chosen by the people. So, let's start at A. Specifically with the most famous case. Donkey Kong Country. Donkey Kong Country was a famous game series from Nintendo that re-established the then waning franchise with Donkey Kong. We'll be looking at the first 3 games game over screens. You'd actually be seeing those game over screens often due to the extreme difficulty of these games. I'm pretty sure this sound traumatizes those who grew up in the 80s. But we're not talking about that game over screen. I'm talking about the other one. This is the game over screen for the first Donkey Kong Country game. It features Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong bruised up and beaten, looking distraught in a black background with hollow and depressing music. Fun fact, until the game either pressed a button or turned off the console, this screen would just stay there. When going down the comment section, you could see gamers reminiscing about this experience and feeling creeped out by the screen. The darkness coupled with the hollow music and the upsetting image of the beaten up characters can upset a few. Before I move on to the sequel, I should mention that there is a variant of this game over screen. Donkey Kong Country was imported to the Game Boy Color at some point, and due to the graphical limitations of the GBC compared to the SNES, the game over screen ended up looking way creepier. The music was also changed and sounds drastically different. Unlike the original version, which was creepy to some extent, this one does a great job at straight up spooking the gamer. This version is way scarier. The creepier music, the hideous looking characters, not to mention the eyes of Diddy Kong were altered to look straight at the gamer. These little differences went a long way. For Donkey Kong Country 2, it's actually the least scariest of the 3, but still a bit upsetting. This game over screen is more sad than scary. Maybe the screen turning red may be a bit eerie, but the scenario of Diddy Kong and Dixie being imprisoned and God knows what they'll do to them, shown before us, is quite dark. There's an import variant like DKC1, but it's not any different, just bit crushed, so for time's sake, we won't look into it. In short, creepy, to some extent. Upsetting? Sure. Lastly, Donkey Kong Country 3 has arguably the second scariest game over screen. It kinda returns to the roots of the first game, meaning that this one does a great job with the music department. That's unsettling. And like DKC1, this screen will just stay there unless the player does something about it. Up next is Super Mario 64, one of the most iconic games of all time. When researching for this video, I was actually intrigued by the amount of gamers that talked about how eerie this game over screen was. I did not expect this. While I'm generally conflicted on that idea, just watch for yourself.
Game over.
Me personally, there isn't that much unnerving about it. More so, it's kinda weird. The warped music, the red background, the woozy Mario may be weird for a lot of people, but scary? That's a bit of a reach. Though I'm not one to judge others. So concluding, it might not be scary, but it's absolutely a bit weird. The same can't be said for Metroid Prime 3. This game over screen is downright unsettling. The screaming, Samus corrupting, the eerie title screen, these elements add up to a borderline scary game over screen, especially for the young ones playing the game. The context may even add up to scare factor. This game over screen is a terminal corruption variant. What does that mean? Well, in the game, Samus was at one point attacked by Dark Samus, and now has Phazon in her, and later on experiences Phazon overload. If the gamer is unable to maintain the situation, she succumbs to it, as the Phazon spreads throughout her body and becomes Dark Samus. Concluding, this game over screen may be one that may not be absolutely terrifying, but it is upsetting, borderline scary at the very least. The last one I want to talk about for category A is The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. Now, at this point you may have noticed a pattern. All these games are Nintendo games, a company that, at the time, made games for children and young teens. If these game over screens were from recent games, this wouldn't be that much of a big matter, as Nintendo has since directed their audience to everyone, not just children. So with that being said, what was Nintendo's mind at the time for making such atrocious game over screens? It should just stink. Back to the game. This game may have the creepiest game over screen in this entire video. In the game's context, Link must stop the moon from crashing into the world in 3 days. When the player fails to do so, they're met with this scene. This animation speaks for itself. The moon crashing, the destruction, Link's painful scream as he is presumably killed, and the caption at the end coupled with the giggle. Doubtless, this game over screen has spooked hundreds of gamers both then and now, and I can only imagine how kids must have felt. Did the movie director make this? That would explain everything. So, is this creepy? Of course it is. The whole concept of not only that, but the entire game itself has led many to consider this game one of the darkest Zelda games ever made. And seeing this makes me think about that claim time and time again.
Is this a joke? Those are all Nintendo games. This is complete bullshit.
What are you gonna do about it? Give them on a scary verdict?
Wanna say that again?
Now we're in category B. The game over screens that were made with pure malicious intentions to scare the gamers. The most famous case is Five Nights at Freddy's. The game itself is one of the most famous indie horror games ever conceived, and the impact it has made on not only the indie department, but the entire gaming industry is unprecedented. But let me stop dick riding this game for once and look at the game over screen for the first game. When you die from any of the four main animatronics, you get a silent still image of this. The parts and service room with a Freddy animatronic sitting on the table. But it's not just a suit. The endoskeleton is in there, is what most outsiders might think. Look closely, if you dare. The eyeballs popping out of the eye holes. They aren't robotic eyes. They're real eyes. That's you in the suit. During the first night, the phone guy explains what happens if the animatronics get to you.
Now, concerning your safety, the only real risk to you is the fact that these characters, if they happen to see you after hours, probably won't recognize you as a person. They'll most likely see you as a metal endoskeleton without its costume on. Now, since that's against the rules here at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, they'll probably try to forcefully stuff you inside a Freddy Fazbear suit. Now, that wouldn't be so bad if the suits themselves weren't filled with cross beams, wires, and animatronic devices, especially around the facial area. The only parts of you that would likely see the light of day again would be your eyeballs and teeth when they pop out the front of the mask. Yeah, they don't tell you these things when you sign up.
Imagine yourself being crushed to death by the wires and compartments of the animatronic suits to the point where in which your eyeballs pop out of your sockets. It's a pretty sickening thought, isn't it? You know what's even scarier about this game over screen? The unpredictability of it. See, when you die and get the game over screen, there is a very small chance of seeing this screen. An eyeless Bonnie. No jump scares, no music. Just Bonnie. At the very last second of the screen, his eyes open, staring directly at you, before bringing you back to the main menu as if nothing ever happened. Something similar happens in FNAF 2. Whenever you die, you might have a chance of seeing a death screen from Bonnie, Freddy, or Foxy. Now that you know this, imagine playing these games and being on the edge of your seat, knowing you might have a small chance of seeing this disturbing Easter egg. This, my friends, makes up for a horrifying game over screen. One last game for this category is Doki Doki Literature Club, one of the most popular psychological horror games of the 2010s. There's a debate on whether these are technically game over screens, but being that the game ends just like that whenever you see such screens, I considered them for this video. The first 3 game over screens occur when you naturally play the game through with no tweaks. One ends on a rather horrific note, saying your best friend Sarori killed herself, and the other 2 are the good and bad endings, and they also happen naturally, but they have no scare factor. Every other game screen happens rather by chance, and do have a scare factor. For one such game over screen, when you delete any character in the game files, Sayori will have a freak out and the game will instantly close. When reopening it, you get a game over screen that looks like this. If you wait for 10 minutes, you get text that says, "Now everyone can be happy." Game over screen number 2 can occur if Natsuki glitches out and cracks her neck. The third and last ending can happen by pure chance when opening up the game at any time, looking like this. Concluding, the DLC's unpredictability makes these secret game over screens creepy to experience. The last category I want to talk about are the miscellaneous game over screens. These game over screens are game over screens that the people say are creepy. I looked through many game over screens and chose ones that had comments on how creepy they were from friends of the game, old or young. Here are them all.
This has got to be one of the stupidest discussions I've ever witnessed. It's a fucking game over screen. Just push the fucking start button.
Hey, who are you to judge these freaks? Freak. I'll have you know that I was one of the very few who witnessed the Bonnie death screen, and I was fucking terrified by it. You'd have to be under their shoes to understand.
Oh, boo-hoo. What are you gonna do about it now? Get into another radioactive disaster?
Go downstairs. Right now.
Yeah, whatever. Finish your stupid fucking video.
Hello there. If you're watching this, then you have made it to the end of the video. Thank you so much. Did you enjoy it? Did you hate it? Just let me know. I had really much fun making this video. It meant a lot to me because this was a video I've always wanted to make for quite some time. I have done videos like this in the past, but they've always turned out shit. And this time I want to do it just right. And I am so glad with the way it turned out. And thank you all just so much for tuning in and watching it all the way to the end and liking it. It really means a lot. And yeah, if you enjoyed this, be sure to subscribe for future content or not, your choice. And I'm going to be heading off to bed now because I am in the middle of editing this actually right now. This was a video I wanted to make during the middle of the editing just as a quick thing. And yeah, this video is kind of creepy to make, and I doubt I'm gonna get any sleep because of the creepy music and all that. Yeah, this was a bit eerie to make compared to other videos I've made. I'm gonna have a very hard time sleeping, so wish me luck. But that's all you get. See ya. Goodbye. Bye.